Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all good. I'm Leah for those of you who are new. So this is the second Q&A of my little Q&A series. Also, if you follow me over on Instagram, I have also got a little frequently asked questions highlight. So hopefully that will answer any questions that you might have. So the first question I've been getting asked quite a lot this week, and it is, do you purchase through a limited company? And yes, we do purchase our properties through a limited company, mainly for tax reasons. I do have a video with a property tax accountant who really explains the benefits of purchasing through a limited company, and he also talks about like a lot of common mistakes people make and things like that, and yeah, just about property tax and things like that. So make sure you check it out, because obviously I am no financial advisor, so it's best to hear it from the experts. Okay, so the next question is how to choose a property. So obviously this is all going to depend on the strategy that you've chosen and like your property goals and things like that. But when we were first getting started, we were actually looking for HMOs that kind of needed like little to no work. And we used to have criteria like, was it below market value? Was it in negative equity? The number of existing bathrooms, the likely rent you would get per room, and then also was it close to public transport or to like a university or something like that. But it's really funny because like when we were first starting out, we were actually going to book a trip to Middlesbrough. Like we were looking at investing in HMOs all the way up in Middlesbrough, but we ended up not going for like some reason, and I'm so glad that we didn't. And we just kind of like got more clear on our strategy and what we actually wanted to do and our investment area and things like that. So yeah, now that we've refined our strategy more, most of the criteria is kind of like in our head in terms of like the maximum amount we'll pay, which is usually based on how many bedrooms we think we can get out of the property and how much the conversion is going to cost. So yeah. Okay, so next question, how do we decide if a project has potential? Because we now do commercial conversions, which are major refurbs, we have to assess each project based on the purchase price, the price to complete the work, and the likely end value. Ideally, we want the purchase price plus the cost of the refurb to be no more than 75% of the likely end value once the refurb is done. If we keep the total cost of the project below 75%, then we are more likely to be able to pull out all of our money, and that's what we're trying to do. So yeah. So things we have to consider are the end value and what the property is likely to be worth. We also take into consideration the floor plan and the layout of the property. So we're looking at, can we easily create a good living space? Can we fit bathrooms in easily? Is the kitchen going to be big enough? And like, can we do all of this without having to knock down too many walls? So on my channel, if you watch the first house renovation video that I ever put up, I'll make sure I leave it linked down below. The actual layout of that property, we didn't really change it too much. Like we didn't do too much extra work. We didn't have to knock down that many walls and things like that. So it was kind of like a very simple layout that was kind of ready to go kind of thing. Another thing that's really important to us, and I think I say this in every single video, is that we like for our tenants to have their own bathrooms. So we kind of need to consider like where drainage would go and things like that. And then also personally, we prefer to have older buildings with a bit of character as opposed to new builds. Like that's just our thing. But obviously some of these things are like personal preferences. So like for example, the bathrooms things, like you don't have to do that. You can have people sharing bathrooms. It's just we don't like to do that. Next question, how do we choose locations? We tend to just stick to areas that we know really well. We've never been to like an unknown city for us. Like we've always stayed pretty local and just areas that we've been to like a few times and that we kind of know relatively well. And then in that area we'll look to see if there's like a large employer in the area and where they're located, and then we kind of say like, okay, it would be good to have HMOs near there because there's a lot of people working there, for example. We try to stick to the rule of being within 1 mile to the big employer, and then as well being like within walking distance to public transport and shops and things like that. So yeah. So for our like main investment area, we have chosen to stay close to home, and when I say home, it's actually my parents' hometown, which is like nearly an hour away from where I live in Birmingham. It was just one of those things where because the prices worked well, we just kind of thought, well, why not just stay close to home? And the properties are also like within half a mile of my mum and dad's house, so yeah, they are really close to the properties. Everything is just really close together. And also personally, we tend to avoid major cities where there's a lot of competition, but that's just personally, you know. But yeah, we're definitely really glad that we've stayed local and stayed with our hometown, because even getting trades and things like that, it's just so much easier because we kind of, it's a very small town where like everybody knows everyone kind of thing. So it's worked really well for us. And then also in terms of managing the properties, it's just been like so much easier having them close to home. And then also in terms of managing the properties, it's been so much easier because they are so nearby. And then obviously we like to surprise our tenants sometimes with cakes and takeaway and things like that. So yeah, that's just easier to do when you're like local, whereas if we'd have gone to Middlesbrough, which was like 4 hours away, then do you know what I mean, it would have just been more difficult. So yeah. Okay, so next question is, why did you get a down valuation? So this actually happened while we were purchasing the old office. I'll leave a link to the video where I spoke about the whole down valuation situation so you can check it out. But yeah, it was basically just because of Brexit and market uncertainty, because this was like a year and a bit ago now, so this was when Brexit was a big thing and everyone was just like so uncertain with what was going on. So yeah, we ended up getting a down valuation and it was a pain. So yeah. Next question, how do we finance projects? So for our first investment project, we got started by refinancing on our family home, and then we took out a bridging loan to buy our first one. And then since then we've used a combination of private investors and then our own money, which is actually the recycled money from our first family home that we put into our first property and then recycled, and so on and so forth. So yeah, we actually started working with our investor on our second investment property, the old office, because obviously because of the down valuation we were then struggling to get finance. Then he stepped in and saved our lives. But yeah, using private investors or using cash if you've got the money basically just removes the risk of the deal falling through because of a down valuation, which has been pretty common nowadays just because of all of the like market uncertainty and things like that. A lot of people are getting down valuations. So yeah. Okay, next question. How did you find your investor? So obviously there is a lot of people who find investors through networking events and things like that. And personally, me and Mom, we don't tend to go to that many property networking events because it's not a thing really. But yeah, we basically came into contact with our investor through one of our previous vendors, and we were really just having a casual conversation, and we were talking about the fact that we had this down valuation because of Brexit, and he basically just offered to step in and help us out, which was just absolutely amazing. So yeah, just all having conversations, and then he became our investor. And yeah, with that investor we based it on similar terms and rates that we would have for a bridging loan, because we were going through a bridging loan anyway, but then because of the down valuation we couldn't get the bridging loan. So then with the investor we just based it on the same terms and rates, and yeah. And now our investor has worked with us on our third project, and hopefully this relationship can continue, and yeah. But what I will say about working with the investor is it was so much easier to do because we already had one property under our belt. So he could already see the numbers of our first property. He could already see the standard that we operated at. So things were much easier because we already had one property under our belt kind of thing. So it kind of meant that we didn't really have to like pitch as much because, I don't know, we just didn't. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's going to be a little bit more difficult to find like a cold investor to invest in you for your first project. I'm not saying it's never been done before obviously, but if you've already got a property under your belt they can already see what you do, whereas if you haven't, like how are you going to convince pretty much a stranger like I can make this property work kind of thing? That's all I'm saying, but I'm not saying it's never been done. I'm just saying it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Okay, next question. How have we got planning permission? Okay, so the first time we did use a planning consultant to go through the planning process with us, but he turned out to be a little bit rubbish, so we ended up doing a lot of back and forth with the planning office directly ourselves, and we were kind of like, what is this planning consultant even doing? What is the point in him? So for the second time we needed to get planning, we decided to do the application ourselves and take it all on ourselves. We did do something called a pre-app, and a pre-app is really good because they basically tell you like the likelihood of you actually getting planning or not. And they kind of explain to you before you put in a full planning application, like why your planning application would be rejected, why it would be accepted, and things like that. So pre-apps are definitely really, really good when it comes to planning. We did also read this book, and it's called How to Get Planning Permission, and that is definitely really, really helpful, and it has really, really helped us out. So yeah. But in the video I did about how we brought the cafe, I did talk in a lot more detail about going through the whole planning process and how we went through the planning application ourselves and things like that. So if you're interested in hearing more about planning permission, then make sure you check out that video. Okay, so another question that I get asked quite a lot is, where do you find properties? And good old Rightmove, we love a bit of Rightmove, Property Link, and then also word of mouth, because I guess because we have to like work with quite a few different people and they have to understand what we do and things like that, then they might randomly be like, hey, I've got this cousin who's selling this property, or I'm selling this property kind of thing. So once you start telling people what you do and things like that, it is a lot easier to come across deals because people know what you do. So yeah. Also guys, I get asked a lot of questions about mortgages and bridging finance and things like that. Obviously, I'm not a financial advisor to be advising you on what mortgage you can get and things like that, but I have done 2 videos with our old mortgage broker about mortgages and bridging. So make sure you check out those videos because I did a Q&A with him and he answers so many questions in there, so make sure you check them out. So guys, that is it for Q&A number 2. If you haven't seen the first Q&A video that I did, then make sure you go and check it out. Also, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Leah_Miller and check out the little frequently asked question highlight that I've got on there, just because it might answer some of your questions. So yeah. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, make sure you subscribe and give this video a big thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Bye.